चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. So today now I'll summarize what I discussed in the previous session, and then I'll talk about, we'll go in a particular direction in the last session. So the key theme, the first session yesterday was on acceptance of people. And in order to accept people, then we need to accommodate or facilitate them where they are, so that they can gradually rise from there. And that's what we discuss, how the broad Vedic mood is, the Bhagavad Gita's mood is. It's inclusive and it is not inclusive. So the danger is when we accommodate people, the people may stay stuck at that level, or people from a higher level may descend to that lower level. And that is a danger. But what we want is people from a lower level can rise to a higher level. We provide the facility. And then if we are giving the overall education environment, then people will rise toward the higher level. So this is what so in this facilitation of multiple levels, I discuss expansion and elevation of consciousness. That was an elaborate subject. And within that four diagram, there's only no expansion, no elevation, that's selfishness. There's only expansion but no elevation, and that's mundane welfare. Prabhupada was not against mundane welfare, he was more against social service being portrayed as a superior alternative to devotional service. And there's only expansion with elevation without expansion, then that can lead to sectarianism, narrow-mindedness. That can lead to self-righteousness and fighting among devotees also. And then the best is there's elevation and expansion both. So now, in this last part of the session, I'll talk about different definitions of success in broadly speaking. That's the theme. So, different definitions of success. See, we all are driven by certain definitions. Just like in material life, a student may be driven by marks. My self-worth is determined by how many marks I get. In material life, for many people, how much they earn, that is their definition of success. So their net worth becomes their self-worth. Yeah. So, for example, some people, their net worth may become their self-worth. Depending on how much I earn this much, my brother earns that much, my brother is much more successful than what I am. So we all have certain definitions of success that actually shape our entire life. And say for somebody, if there are two brothers, one of them may be having a good functional family, good children, and they're doing well. But their definition of success is how much am I earning? Now the other brother may be in a broken family, maybe having poor children who are not doing very well in their life. But you'll always think, oh, that person is earning more, therefore is more successful. Then that's one parameter, not the sole parameter. So overall, what happens is, our definition of success, they both consciously and unconsciously, they both shape our entire life. They shape our self-conception, they shape our priorities, they shape our life at large. And this applies even in bhakti. So generally within ISKCON, we have had three definitions of success. One was books distributed. Second is devotees made. And the third is temples built. And these three are extremely valid, valuable, important definitions of success. No doubt about it. Each of these, if you see, in one particular area, this is a marker. We say temples are more in the cultural area. ISKCON is well known for its beautiful, magnificent temples. So it becomes a very visible, dramatic symbol of the presence and power of our movement. Similarly, books, they are multiple ways. They are sharing wisdom, they are bringing in income, they are giving engagement. There are many ways they are valuable. And similarly, of course, devotees meet. We had initiation. How many devotees got initiation? We had a program. How many people came for the program? So devotees meet. But these three have been the conventional definitions of success, and they operate even now. Now they are you can say all these three are the driving forces of our movement's functioning. Now, having said that, there are at least three definitions of success that were very seriously neglected. And now gradually many others are also coming up. So first was devotees practicing lifelong. This is also a very important definition of success. And in this, we could say in the first generation, we have been a tragic failure. There are different surveys, but almost 90% of Srila Prabhupada's disciples are no longer associated with this group. Maybe it's a little more, little less. Some of them are practicing Krishna consciousness at various levels. So it's like we bring in devotees, but many devotees go away. So they come in from one side, they go away from one side. So as a counter to this, we have now started doing something like devotee care. Although it's talked about more than actually implemented, but at least it's being talked about. So you recognize that this is an important definition of success. How long do devotees keep practicing throughout their life? What all is required for them? Then the second is devotee children practicing. This is considered to be one of the, in religious sociology, this is considered one of the biggest challenges and one of the biggest parameters of the success of a movement. Now, do the people born in the movement want to practice it? And all over the world, this is the problem. In Christianity, they have phenomena called PK. PK is preachers' kids. So preachers' kids very rarely actually become even Christians, not to speak of preachers. Because for them there's a lot of pressure. You cannot do this, you have to do this. So the pressure of the example for the whole congregation. So this is also where I could say not only where we in some ways failed, but it was child abuse and everything was it's worse than a failure of the debacle in some ways. And even now, how many of the children of our devotees will continue and choose to practice bhakti? That is another important parameter which has been neglected. The third is philosophy understood. So that means, like Prabhupada said, books are not just meant for distribution, they're meant for reading. And reading doesn't mean just we allot a time for half an hour, 1 hour. That is okay, that is good. But in general, philosophical understanding grows through hearing, through systematic study, through courses. So, for example, for this, we are having now Bhakti Shastri and other courses. So, now for this, we have started, I would say, we've really not done much for this. We could say we have started schools, but quite often our schools are good at, our school outreach to non-devotee kids is actually more effective than our outreach to devotee kids. Isn't it? So these are all important definitions of success, which now the problem with all of this is that none of that these are not so easily quantifiable. Quantifiable means okay, how much is the philosophy? Devotee understood philosophy. How are you going to quantify that? You can say, okay, they've done Bhakti Shastra, they've done Bhakti Vaibhav, they've done Bhakti Vedanta. So that's wonderful. That's one way of making parameters. But all these three, we could say, to some extent, now, in one sense, Bhakti is transcendental. Always, in all devotional activities are transcendental. But in another sense, when we are doing those activities, we are motivated by particular modes. So all these three are actually definitions in Rajas. Right? Doing something new, building a temple. It is okay, made somebody a devotee. It's a very concrete, it's a Rajasic definition of success. I'm not minimizing or trivializing it over here. Rajaguna is also important. A person as important as Brahma is involved in creation. And the Lord has to empower him, the Lord shakes hands with him. So Rajasic activity is not to be condemned. But these are definitions in Rajas, broadly speaking. And these are definitions in Sattva. So what has happened is overall, we as a movement, while you're talking about transcendence, the Rajasic definitions of success have been what we have pursued a lot. And we have been successful in those. But there are other definitions of success also, which need to be sufficiently emphasized. So for example, consider a devotee who's a crowd puller, a preacher who's a crowd puller and attracts hundreds and thousands of new people, as contrasted with a devotee who is a Shastric teacher, who is Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav. In one sense, who gets more glamour, who gets more attention, who gets more glorification? It's generally the crowd puller. So now I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but this is an observation. So we want more and more people to become devotees. But somebody who's studying Shastra deeply and is spending time in that, how much are they appreciated or valued? So that is now slowly devotees are creating room and devotees are doing that. But quite often it's not so easy to do that because there is always a pressure of other services. It's like, yeah, scripture study you can do when you get time. Now you do this, now you do this, so it's like that. So now these are just three definitions of success which are quite important for the sustenance of our movement. And these are not pursued, then it's like we'll be going up and coming down. In the West, unfortunately, now again, I don't want to blame the West, but it is the way it has happened is in some places. Like in the temple, if you go in the mornings, even in the mornings, or to speak of other times, there are more deities than there are devotees in the temple. Mhm. And it's sad, but that's how it is. So what has happened is we build a structure, but the sustenance was not there. And then devotees are meant to be. Historically, there are reasons for it. We can't just blame anyone for it. Basically, in the 1970s, our devotees were doing distribution. And that was the main source of outreach as well as income. But then there was a quote of Prabhupada, by hook or by crook. And that was used and abused. So many times, and one of the most, you could say, most abuse, or shameful form of abuse was in America, many people who are like addicted to drugs or alcohol, while they are taking some treatment for recovery, the government provides welfare money. And then there is a particular office where you go before the legalization. You go to the office and there you get the money from them. So our devotees, at least three places in America, they would go to those places. So what happens is, if that office is there where there's recovering drug addicts, they get money. As soon as they get money, most of them will take some drugs. But after that, when they're taking drugs, they are high. That is the time devotees would approach them and tell them, take this book. And sometimes they would give one or two books, and these people, because they're like high on drugs, they would just not have any good sense. They would sometimes, okay, how much to give? How much, whatever you like to give. And sometimes they would just give $500 for two books. And that $500 was the money which is supposed to sustain them for the entire fortnight or a month. And then these people would be in big trouble after that. And devotees would think, oh, we got so much Lakshmi collection. That was the only parameter that we would consider. And eventually, some organizations which were doing this, which were trying to take care of this drug addict, they came to know what was happening. They complained to the government, and the government actually stopped us from book distribution. And book distribution, we got so much anti-publicity with the Krishna Maharaj for a few, almost I think, if not a few months, few years. She told you to stop restricting books. But basically, because of incidents like these, our books view suddenly went down. And when the books view suddenly went down, then the temples had no source of income. Temples didn't know what to do. And temples told devotees, "No, you can just leave now. We can't take care of you." Now, those devotees were probably devotees in 15, 16, 17, 18, 20 when they had joined, they dropped out of colleges. They had joined, and now they were 40, 45, 50. They told just to leave. I was in one city in New York, and not in New York, one city in America. And this one Mataji, she came to me, she was not 70, and she had a fracture in her hand. So she said that when she was 55, she was told to leave the temple. And she said, I have no skills. She says, now I'm staying with my son, and my son is a Satan worshipper. Whether like a reaction to Christianity, some people say you worship God, you worship Satan. And my son's wife, present wife, she's a Wiccan witch. Wicca is like black magic. She's a witch in that. And I'm staying at their place, and there I'm chanting Hare Krishna. And then she says she's 70 now. She last 10 years she was actually driving an Ola to earn a living. And then somehow something had happened, and she had fractured her hand. So she said, I cannot even drive now. I don't know what I'm going to do. So this is very tragic. There are stories like this. So basically what happened was, now when the devotee got told to leave, he says, Krishna will protect you. Now Krishna will protect. But that is true, but Krishna often protects through his devotees. And as our devotees, it's our responsibility to offer the protection. So, of course, so in the 80s, our movement had a huge exodus. A lot of devotees left. Of course, some devotees just couldn't survive after Prabhupada departed. That was one reason. Their attraction was Prabhupada, the Prabhupada departed, they left. The second was, after Prabhupada departed, many of the successors, they became very high-handed. They tried, out of ignorance or out of just the desire to serve, whatever it was, they started acting just like Prabhupada. And that the devotees couldn't bear. Like say, you're all equals. I mean, all of us are the same generation, more or less. And suddenly one of us becomes a guru. And then everybody else has to sing Guru Puja to that person and offer flower and obeisance to that person. And treat that person like the representative of God. It's very difficult. And they also didn't understand that these are my God brothers, they're not my disciples. So they also started, their disciples would listen to them, their God brothers would not listen to them. So they started sidelining all their God brothers. So many devotees left because of that also. And after this when the book discipline went down, outreach went down, then devotees were told to leave. So because of that, almost 90% of our devotees left the movement. And it was in the mid 80s, our movement started recognizing, in the West, they started recognizing that actually Hindus, Indians are a potential audience. Parthasarthi was telling me that how we actually stumbled on Hindus. See, nowadays we do congregation preaching. The idea is that we go every week and do programs and people's classes. But this concept was not there in 1970s, 80s ISKCON. Because you move into the temple, and when you move into the temple, you have classes in the temple. The idea of going regularly to people's houses and helping them grow in bhakti was not there at all. So he said when the Hindus would come to our temples, Indian Hindus would come, he said we would preach to them, but these Indians had come to the West for economic well-being, for economic improvement, financial improvement. They had no interest in moving into the temple. And because our definition of success was a person moves into the temple. So we thought they are never going to become devotees. And we neglected them. So he said the situation was so curious, so ironic, that these people were coming week after week to the temple. And if somebody in the street had asked them, which group do you belong to, or which religion do you belong to, they would have said Hare Krishnas. But if somebody had asked us, are they Hare Krishnas? They're not Hare Krishnas. Because they're not going into the temple, they have no intention to go to the temple. But then around 1980, mid 80s, he said we started realizing that these are serious people. They may not move to the temple, but they are committed. And that's when we started cultivating them. And then they came to the rescue. Because Indians in the West were quite well to do. So they started giving funds. Actually, without Indians in the West, our movement would have shut down. Because when the Western devotees went away, things also changed and subsequent generation not able to attract Westerners much. That's the whole biggest reason. We cannot go into that. Why we are not able to attract customers? But one reason also, to just reinforce what we have been discussing till now, is that in general, I talked earlier about there is hierarchical society. Hierarchical means a top-down approach, where this is the authority and subordinate. So even now, we can say broadly the Eastern world, Eastern from the West perspective, India, China, Russia, with the Middle East, these are hierarchical. The West is more egalitarian. Egalitarian means more equal, horizontal. So in general, the West is like this. So in general, our outreach has been successful here. And wherever society has become egalitarian, our outreach is not being successful. So in Russia we are successful, in Ukraine we are successful. These are, we can call them westernized world, but there is very little Western culture there. I mean, because the Western culture in some ways it is there, people's dressing and everything other different. But still it's very hierarchical society. You respect your elders, you follow your elders. Now does that mean that in the egalitarian setup we cannot reach out? Yes, we can, but it requires a different way of presenting. It requires a different emphasis. I was one devotee, one scholar, Hare Krishna scholar, who is also like a bhakta but not a ISKCON devotee. He was telling me his experience. He came to a temple and he started practicing bhakti. And he, after a class, he had a question. So he says, Prabhu, I have a question. And the devotee sitting next to him almost slapped him on his face. He said, you are committing an aparadh. That is not a Prabhu, that is Maharaj. Now, he was a new person, just come for 1 or 2 months. And he said, I just got so annoyed by that. He says, you see, this is the path of the heart, but you have created such an elaborate structure of power within it. And one misstep, and you just condemn the person for not knowing that structure of power. So is this a rinse hierarchy, or is this a path of the heart? So I like bhakti, but I don't want to practice bhakti also. So it's appreciative of Krishna consciousness. So the point I'm making is that sometimes the hierarchical can become too much. So this is the reason I was talking about this is that I'm not going to talk about East and West hierarchical reality. The point I was talking is we neglected devotee care. And so that was not a definition of success at all. As long as the books are going out, as long as temples are being run, why bother about other things? So just let devotees go. And that is terrible. Now, of course, things are changing. Now, we are learning to take care of devotees. If some devotee falls sick, the whole community often comes to help that devotee. And that's what so now a lot of things are changing. So in that sense, it is good. Now in the Radha Bhakta temple, they have made a policy. I presume made something similar here also, that if any brahmachari wants to leave the ashram, the temple has said that for 6 months, 1 year, you can stay in the temple. You're not obligated to any service. You can stay and you can study, you can prepare for some course, and then till you get a job, you can settle down. The temple will take care of you. And this is not for somebody in for 6 months or 1 year, but somebody in 5 years, 10 years. It's not that we're going to drop you off completely. So that is something which is helpful. Now, no, there is also said if you need to do some course for getting a job, if you want the temple to support you with payment, we'll also pay you for that course. No, brahmachari has still not taken that. But brahmachari who left the ashram, they stayed in the temple. Now we say brahmachari is leaving the ashram itself is a failure. Well, maybe you can say brahmachari going to grihastha ashram is not a failure. But brahmachari leaving the ashram and giving a bhakti, that is definitely a failure. I know one temple which was like, he said this devotee, he was a brahmachari in that temple, and when he left, he said that the day I changed from saffron to white, it was like the whole community started treating like I had become a achut. I had become untouchable. He's still a good devotee, he's practicing, but he says, that temple I served him for 12 years. He said now he's about 25 years in bhakti. 12 years I served the temple. I left that temple in the last 13 years. I never gone back to the temple also. And nobody from that temple even asked me how am I doing, what am I doing. You left the ashram and you're on your own. That is very unfortunate. So now is it that I don't think in any way that our leaders are ill motivated. It is just that we were or are driven by certain definition of success. And when something is not going to contribute to that success, then why spend time on it? Why spend energy on that? There was that particular temple, that brahmachari leader of that temple is my friend. I asked him, I said, Prabhu, when brahmacharis leave, what do you do? What is this? Ultimately it's Krishna's mission. One brahmachari goes, another brahmachari will come. That is a very, I would say, that's a very, very deep impersonal way of looking at people, isn't it? When people are giving their life and their heart to Krishna, and just treat them like replaceable parts. That's not at all a Vaishnava way of looking at things. So this devotee care, there may not be any quantification of it, but it is a very important part of, it's an important definition of success, which needs to be recognized our within our movement, and it has to some extent come from top down from the leadership. Yes,
So curious case in point. Krishna. Krishna. It's a curious case in point that sometimes there is also this view that you shouldn't make it so easy for them because they have been sources of inspiration for so many other brahmacharis. And at a certain point of time, for whatever be the reason, these people leave the ashram. Sometimes, many times due to weaknesses also. So if it's just a cakewalk for them, then more people will be encouraged to look at plan B as a fallback option. So how does one balance that philosophy?
Yeah, that's a challenge. That because life is tough, and life in the announced order is tough, no doubt about it. So it is easy that some people just want to leave. So what you're saying is very valid. We can't make it. We don't want to make it easy. It's like there's always the black and white kind of thing that which we need to go beyond. See, in America, just to substantiate your point, and then I talk about the Purva. Like in America, they started. Was it America or UK? They had this whole thing called no fault divorce. No fault divorce means like in the past, if you wanted to separate, you had to show what is the reason. Maybe the husband is abusive, the wife is unfaithful, or this or that, something like that. When you actually prove that there's a fault, then you can divorce. But then the two people can say we don't get along with each other. So no fault divorce. Now when that started, statistics show that after no fault divorce was accepted, was made to law, like the divorce statistics just skyrocketed. So it's like now it's almost easier in America to actually end your marriage than to change your phone carrier. Phone carrier. If you're using Geo and you want to change to Vodafone.
Vertical bit of
Yeah. So it's made very easy, and that is dangerous. That is dangerous. So we don't want to make something very easy. But at the same time, we don't want to make it extremely difficult. You know, there was in the Christian church, in Christianity, Catholics are very strongly against divorce. Protestants allow divorce and remarriage. Catholics say that if you divorce, you cannot remarry. And if you divorce or remarry, then you cannot be a part of mass. So there was this Catholic priest who was very strongly against divorce. And there was a woman in his congregation. She was coming and telling that my husband is violent, he's abusive. I want to leave. She said no, just stay with him. And then eventually, what happened was that maybe the husband was beating her too much or something. The wife finally had too much. She picked up a knife and stabbed her husband. And she was trying to defend herself and she stabbed him. The husband died. And eventually she got so horrified what had done, she turned the knife on herself, she killed herself. And after that, this priest, he felt so guilty that he actually went mad. And he had to be admitted to mental asylum. And then when he came out, he actually started documenting all the cases and he became an aggressive campaigner for Catholics to be allowing divorces. So I think he's written It's written, he or someone else had written a book called, Happily Divorced. Like the opposite of happily married, happily divorced. So now, the point is that divorce is certainly not a thing to be encouraged. But we don't want to forbid it so much that people are in abusive marriages. It could be people. Sometimes it's like the world is a is a difficult place, and sometimes there is no solution. There is only a trade-off, and there's they could say not even a good trade-off. There's the least intolerable trade-off, like a person committing suicide and a person deciding to divorce. It's better that you divorce than commit suicide, isn't it? So same way. So sometimes devotees quote statistics that say in America divorces are so high and India divorces are less. Well, so I was quoting the statistics and there's one devotee from India who's gone to America. He said, Prabhu, the statistics are not sound. He said, I said, why? He said in sociology there's a principle. You cannot just make one factor comparison. He said, how many of the, if you say in India marriages are, in India divorces are less. So is it because the families are happily married together? Or is it because the women are uneducated, they have no employment prospects, and although they are miserable, but because they have no option, they're staying on the marriage. So it could be the second option also, and that's why as India is becoming more westernized, we could say women are getting educated, employed, then divorces are increasing. Is it that education and employment are causing divorces? Maybe it's not that simple. It could be that when they find that this is intolerable, they have an option. I know one devotee couple. The husband would the husband the more husband both of them are devotees. The husband would when the boy became a devotee, the girl followed him and became a devotee. The girl is more attached to the boy is attached to the girl. So whenever the boy wanted to get his way, he would threaten with his wife. If you don't do this, I don't think I can live with you. And then the girl would fall into conformity. But after some time, what happened now is that well, she also started practicing bhakti and she started interacting with devotees. Now she said that, says, if you want to divorce me, I'm okay with it. After that, the boy cannot use that threat. Now he has to become more mature and he has to interact and develop a healthier relationship. So I used to stay at their place. So I see that their relation, everybody has difficulties. But the point is that somebody staying on in a miserable marriage just because they have no alternatives. That is not really the success of the marriage ashram, the grahastha ashram. So the same example, I would say to the brahmachari ashram also. Somebody staying on as a brahmachari because they have no alternative. Hmm? I don't think that is a healthy way to keep the brahmachari ashram. Now that we don't want to we don't want to get the brahmacharis to leave very easily also. That's true. Yeah, everybody has difficulty, and sometimes in difficulty the mind wants to see the easiest option out. These options just give up the brahmachari ashram. That is true. But sometimes if somebody is forced to stay there, they are miserable, they spread negative vibes in the ashram. Maybe they have desire they can't control, and then they do something illicit, they have some affair or something like that. That is far worse. So we don't want to make it, certainly we don't make it too easy, but we don't want to make, we want people to stay in the ashram because they want to stay in the ashram, not because they have nowhere else to go. Am I making myself clear? Yeah. So that's the broad understanding. So let's not. I want maybe this answer became too long. Sorry about that. But my point was that we have to care for devotees. So ideal situation should be that while brahmachari should be encouraged to stay in the ashram, even the congregation needs to be educated to see that a brahmachari becoming grahastha is not a failure. That a brahmachari becoming grahastha and still continuing to practice bhakti is also another form of success. Certainly, we don't want brahmacharis who 20, 25 years in the ashram and age of 45, 50 changing in their ashram. But if somebody is 3, 4, 5 years, even 10 years in the ashram, they leave. That's not a failure. So I think that education to congregation is better than trying to force the brahmacharis to stay in the ashram. Yeah. So does that answer your question? So, yeah. So my key point was more about devotee care rather than the ashram entry or ashram departure.
No, point was about care.
Yeah.
The facets of care, that you care for them so well that
Yeah.
they don't want to leave. They don't want to leave. That's one. On the other end, that you care for them so much that it's okay for them to leave.
Yeah. So this is it's actually a good point. There was one devotee who was telling me that if a couple says we want to divorce, almost all senior devotees will try to talk with them, try to resolve the issue. But sometimes when brahmacharya says I want to leave the ashram, okay, you came by your will, you can leave by your will. It shouldn't be that simple. Okay, just as we would try to save a marriage, like that we also try to save a brahmachari in the ashram. We try to resolve the issue within that situation, but sometimes it may not be resolved. So yeah, definitely, devotee care also means if a devotee is uncomfortable with particular kind of service. See, there is this varana and ashram. So varana, it doesn't necessarily have to mean division into four varana. It just means that we have an engagement that is according to our nature. Sometimes when brahmacharis leave the ashram, it is more because they feel they have no engagement that is according to their nature. Many of the devotees, Ramula was mentioning about doing a monks podcast, many of the devotees from the West, if you consider Gaurav Prabhu, Satyaraj Prabhu, Yogeshwar Prabhu, all of these, they are scholars and they are completing their own right. All of them in the brahmacharya ashram at one time for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And I talked with them about it. They said that we left the ashram because we saw no growth prospects in the ashram. There's no scope at that time for like studying scripture and understanding things deeply. Then the only thing we were doing was book distribution, and that's what we were expected to do for the rest of our life. Which was wonderful, but not everybody can do that service. So I would say devotee care is recognizing that we need to engage devotees according to nature. Many times when brahmacharis feel dissatisfied with the ashram, it's less the aspect of sense control as more the aspect of incompatible service. If compatible service is given, then sense control also becomes higher. I think this is maybe I just quickly make this point here. See, this is if you consider this is the higher taste and this is the lower taste. The lower taste we generally say sense gratification. Higher taste is Krishna consciousness. However, you could say in between these, if you call this like there is like a intermediate higher taste. If I may use this word, I'll explain what I mean by this. Intermediate higher taste is action according to our varana. When a kshatriya does kshatriya work, they get a satisfaction in that. When a brahmana does brahmana work, they get satisfaction in that. So now, if that work is devotional, that is great. But if somebody is an intellectual, they just love to read books, they love to study. And even now in the world, we see that there are many people who choose to become academics, they just become faculties, and they could go into industry and they could earn more money. But they choose that because that's what gives them satisfaction. So this is not necessarily spiritual satisfaction, but it's still a higher satisfaction in the sense that the person is not just simply gratifying their senses; they're acting according to their own. So in general, from here to here is a long journey. From the taste for sense gratification, the taste for Krishna consciousness. We completely satisfy the taste for Krishna consciousness. By being, just worship the deity, hear Krishna Katha, and chant the holy names. Just to get satisfaction in core devotional activities alone. It takes a long time. But in this journey, this can be our sustainer. If we can find if we can find a service that gives us taste, then we can sustain ourselves. So many times if a brahmachari feels like leaving, then if you can find out what service they can do which is more compatible with their nature, then it will be easier for them to stay also. Any comments, questions?
Sometimes we also heard from authorities that if you join the ashram, you should come in 100% surrender mode. Should not be attached to the services. Otherwise, why would you would have joined the ashram? So whatever he told to you, so you try to do that and try to develop taste in that also.
Yes.
So sometimes devotees,
Yeah.
unit devotee also feel little pressurized. So and it vice versa. Sometimes they also don't want to do anything, and they are simply giving excuse also to their authorities. So how to balance?
Yeah, it's true. See, it is ultimately a matter of if this is authority, the subordinate. See, in principle, from the subordinate's perspective, they should be ready to do whatever service they do. But the authority's perspective should be that I want this devotee to be happy. And they'll be happy when they're doing service which is according to the nature which they're gifted in. So both should have more of a concern for the other than for themselves. Like we see in the Varnashram, it is said that elderly people should be taken care of. That's one of the 5 classes of people. That's for the elderly people. But then it is also said that the success of a person is that the old person, when they go old, they just leave home. And when the Dhritarashtra dies in the jungle, Prabhupada says, to die unknown without anyone knowing, completely focused on the absolute truth. That is success. So, on one side, it is said that the elderly people should focus on spirituality and not care for material things. But society is told you should take care of it. So it's like that means it's both think of the other side.
Yes.
That's how it should be. So if a brahmachari is constantly, if we just leave it on our mind to decide what is the service according to my nature, the mind will always have one answer. The service you are doing right now is not according to the nature.
Yes.
So in one sense, even to understand what is according to my nature, some level of sattva is required. So maybe it's best that initially at least the focus of subordination and obedience is emphasized. That by the practice of bhakti, that the devotee comes to sattva. And once they come to sattva, then they can themselves understand better. And this is something which is more according to my nature, less according to my nature. And they can go toward that service. Yeah, but right now if somebody is right in the beginning itself, we only give service according to their nature. But they don't know their nature. So today they like this service, tomorrow they like that service. Third day they like doing no service. It is like that. Okay. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay. So one important point now, I think this point will take a lot of time, but this is what I'll conclude with, is that in this definition of success, that devotees should be able to sustain themselves. That devotees practice bhakti lifelong. That we care for devotees. One of the key things required is bonding among devotees. Yesterday I mentioned about among the various limbs of devotional service, Guhyam Akhyati Pachati. That is something that doesn't happen so much. So how do we do that? That in general, for a devotee to keep practicing bhakti, what is required is that there should be warm, loving relationships. That we should feel that I belong here, that this is like my home. It's like this is basically for us, especially if we are almost fully living full time in ISKCON, in various ways. It could be, then is it our home or is it our office?
Both.
Well, sometimes it is both, and most of the times it is neither. See, because in one sense, in a home, we can lower our guard, we can be ourselves. In office, we have to be a little more formal, we have to be a little grey, official, basically. We say. So, as devotees, when we are interacting with each other, so is it meant to be an office or is it meant to be a home? Well, it's an office in the sense that that's where we are doing our service, that's where we are doing our job, and that's important. But then this is also meant to be our home. So it's like when we are talking with devotees, when is another devotee a colleague and when another devotee is a family member? Like suddenly I start talking with somebody like a family member, that person becomes a colleague and maybe that starts getting on my case. Then it becomes very difficult. Whom can I trust? Whom can I not trust? So Guhyam Akhyati Pachati. What does this mean? That see, we all will have our challenges. Sometimes even the things which we are expected to do very easily, We may struggle to do those things. And then we need to be able to have some safe place where we can share with others, share our challenges. This is what I'm going through. I can't do this. How do I manage that? But one of the biggest challenges, especially in religious organizations which have like high moral standards, is that people feel extremely lonely. Extremely lonely. Because especially the higher up I go in the hierarchy, the more I have to live up to the image that I am. That is there about me. And then what happens is, if there's any action of mine that is not according to the image, then I have to completely conceal it. And sometimes it's not a bad thing because if I have an image, then maybe living up to that image helps me to practice, become more serious in my practice of something. But sometimes I'm not able to do that because of some conditioning, because of some problem. And it's like I'm wounded, and I went to a war and I'm wounded. Because I'm the commander, I have to act as if I'm not wounded so that I can maintain the morale of everyone else. I can do that maybe for some time, but how long? The wound is there inside, the wound is hurting me. The wound is not just hurting me in another emotional way, it will be harming me, it will become worse. So the wound has to be attended. So, especially this, why this guhyam, the guhya part comes because what is confidential over here? It's not just like I had the dream of Krishna and Radharani and I want to share that dream with somebody else. That could be guhyam. But the more common the guhya part is our struggles, which it is inappropriate to tell others, to tell everyone else. But we need some people whom we can share. So, there is this internal external difference. This is there in everyone. Nobody is at an external level, nobody is internally all that they act as externally. Like sometimes some people say that if I could just understand other people's minds, if I could just see their thoughts, their feelings, then I would be able to deal with them so much better, relationship would be so much better. Well, not really. If we could actually start seeing each other's thoughts, not one relationship could be sustained. You think like this, you have this kind of desires, you have, what kind of person are you? We all have desires, thoughts, emotions that we are not proud of. And nature has given us a natural buffer by which what is inside doesn't come out immediately. And that's a good thing. If everything inside were outside, how would we be able to function at all? There's so much, we all have lust, we all have anger, we all have greed. I saw one cartoon once which showed that this is like a person in office, is an employee, and he's talking with the boss. And like this employee is here, and there's like a mental avatar of that person, mental image next to him. So he's hearing the boss statement, and as he's hearing the boss statement, every statement is responding, the avatar is responding. One is punch the boss, the other is kick the boss, third is spit on the boss. So it is like the person is angry. And you cannot get angry with your boss. You will be fired or worse. So the idea is that we all have a part of us which is wild and is better kept inside. So there are four different levels at which this internal external difference could be there. So let's begin this. See, the worst, and this is what we often equate it with, but it's not always this. The internal external difference is because of hypocrisy. However, that's not the only case. Now, hypocrisy is a very specific case where it is my internal is opposite to the external, and I have no desire to bring the internal external in harmony. Like I have no desire to bring the internal external in harmony. Like I come to a temple not because I'm interested in Krishna, but because I see hey, there's a lot of money in this temple. So I will act as if I have a lot of interest. I'll act as if I'm very serious devotee so that I get responsibility. Then I'll get the key to the treasury. Once I get to key the treasury, I take the money and run away. So throughout that person was cultivating that desire. Hmm? So hypocrisy is where the internal external are opposite and they intentionally kept that. Then apart from that, this internal external difference could be because of, let's put something over here, culture. In culture and ritual, it's so similar but somewhat different. Like culture would mean that suppose there's a person who's older to me, maybe somebody my father's age or grandfather's age. Now that person will do something which will be very angry, but I will not raise my voice against them. That does not mean that I'm not angry. Anger is there internally, but culture means you don't yell at your elders. That's a good thing. That's a basic level of decency is there. So culture, at least if you have anger, the anger has to be dealt with. But don't become like a fish market. Don't become like street gundas. So sometimes culture means that we keep the internal inside, and we want to get rid of the internal. I don't want to be so angry. Sometimes we see somebody who looks attractive, we feel some sexual desire, but we don't want that desire. We're not growing that desire. We want to get it. But culture means that yeah, if somebody attracted without that, we keep staring at them. That is not. We look away. So culture is not a bad thing. Culture is actually important. Now ritual means, so actually you could say, let's put it this way. In hypocrisy, there is desire for negative. By negative I mean we have a negative desire and we want to hold on to that negative desire. Like I have greed for money and I come to the temple so that I can earn money. There's desire for the negative. In ritual, there is no desire for positive. That means a kid is there, his parents are devotees. The kid is not interested in company. But the parents say come to the temple. And the parent child comes to the temple, goes down to the temple. Like sometimes you talk with some devotee kids, the way they are conducting themselves, you can easily make a they would rather be any place other than the temple. But they are there. So it's more like a ritual for them. Let's go there. Hmm? But then there is culture, there is desire for positive. That means that yeah, I don't even want to have this feeling within me that I want to yell at my parents. I want to deal with them reasonably. I want to talk with them properly. I want to resolve the issue. Then beyond that there is discipline. Discipline is like a strong desire for the positive. Say for example, I don't feel like chanting at all. But still I wake up, I sit down and do my job. And I really know the importance of the holy name. I want to have taste for the holy name. I want to be absorbed by chanting. So I'm doing the external, but with a strong desire for the internal. So this external internal tension, it can be at many levels. Just because we have an internal that is different from the external doesn't make us hypocrites. Hypocrisy is when a person is maintaining and fueling the negative internal desire while getting the privilege of not having that external desire. Like somebody is acting renounced to get the prestige that comes with the renounced order. But internally, they are making schemes for sense gratification. And they're not only making schemes, they're pursuing those schemes also privately. And that is hypocrisy. So, now why am I talking about this? That, see, when we are in either of these stages, discipline, culture, ritual, at that time, there is a lot of internal tension. And that internal tension needs some release. Say, for example, if we feel that some senior devotee has dealt inappropriately with us, has been unfair in some decision that they made, and we feel very hurt, we feel disappointed, and then we want to talk with someone, and as soon as we talk with someone, that person starts saying, "Hey, you're committing a Vaishnava aparadha. Why are you criticizing Vaishnava?" Well, I'm not criticizing the Vaishnava. I'm just hurt, and I need a mat for it. Do you want me to go to a non-devotee psychologist and speak this order? Hmm? It is there inside, it has to come out. Maybe somebody can help me process it. And then maybe they broaden my perspective. Uh, and then they say, okay, they did this, but this was not against you. This was for that purpose. And that has happened to you was because of this. Whatever, they give us some understanding. So this safe place where this is okay. Mm, I'll conclude this and then we can have the questions. See, why is the Guhya part Guhya Makyati Puchya? Guhya is because mm, it is a safe place for unexpected emotions, desires. By unexpected means what is not expected. Like say for example a disciple or we will say Shiksha Guru and the Shiksha disciple. We could say that we are expected to feel respectful and grateful towards our seniors. And we're not expected to feel resentful or angry towards them. But sometimes the nature of the world is that we may feel like that. And there may be genuine reasons why we feel like that. So what do we do at that time? We have certain emotions or desires that we're not expected to have. So when we have those, what are we to do with them? Maybe we can just give them up. But it's difficult to give them up like that. Maybe they will just keep them inside and they will go away. But maybe they will not go away. They will stay there and they will fester and they will make things worse. So we need a place where they can be spoken. And that's why the Guhya is required. So Guhya means that, to put another way, is that when we can have this intimate association, when can we have? When there is no immediate judgment. Like somebody starts speaking something negative about a devotee, hey, you are coming Vaishnava Radha. That's like immediate judgment. And then that person answers, I can speak against this person. So now does that mean there is no judgment? Sometimes judgment is required. But no immediate judgment. Like some devotee has done something terrible. And they come and tell the authority. And the first thing is, how could you have done something like this? What kind of horrible person are you? Well, no. Okay, now I've done it. It has happened. What do we do about it? So, non-judgmental attitude, in this case at least, what it means is that, say, if I am here, if somebody is here, and say there is some expected standard to be followed. And that standard, so unexpected, let me put it, so unexpected, let me put it here as non-standard. That means what is not expected according to standard. Non-standard emotional desire is there. So when this happens, the standard is, we could say, violated in some way. Then what happens is, when there is judgment, then this violation of the standard becomes like a wall in between the two people. This standard violation becomes like a wall. And then I am no longer your friend, I am no longer your family. How could you have done like this? You have done like this, you have to be punished like this. On the other hand, when there is confidential association, what that means is, say, I am here, and this standard violation is here. Let us see how we can deal with it. So, I am your friend over here. Yeah, this mistake happened, you fell, you did something wrong, but I am here to help you deal with it. Now, of course, there can be problems with this. Sometimes what happens is, two people may do something wrong and they may both cover each other's back. And in that way, wrong things can keep happening. We don't want that. But the point here is, some incidental wrongs happen. Apichet Sudaracha, as Krishna says in the movie. Sometimes something wrong happens. So Guhya, do I have a safe place where I can speak about my challenges? And then I won't be judged and labeled and condemned, but rather I will be helped. So there are two visions over here. Devotee lapse. I'll use the word lapse as a general word. It can be a slip, it can be a fall, it can be things. So when a devotee lapses, is that devotee to be treated like a wounded soldier, or is that devotee to be treated like a criminal? So So is that person to be sent to the hospital or to the jail? So that is the key question. Now we may not send anybody to a physical jail, but many times if somebody does something wrong, emotionally that person is put like in a jail. Now, you did like that. Don't ever come to our temple. Don't ever come to meet me. Don't ever talk with me. Don't ever text me. So we put people in a jail like that. So in dating they call it ghosting. Ghosting means what? Like a boy and a girl are in a relationship and then they decide to break up. But the breaking up can be a little painful. It requires you have to explain to the person why I don't want, I want to move on in my life, this, that, that. So some people don't want to go through that whole process. They just ghost the other person. Ghost means what? You don't pick up their calls, you don't respond to their messages. You treat as if the person is not existing at all. Even if you are get together, you act as if I don't even see that person. Like your eyes very wide in front of me, but if you were a ghost, I wouldn't see you. So act as if you don't exist on me. That's ghosting. Sometimes, and that's considered very a terrible thing to do. Person you thought you were going to live your life, and now you ghost that person. That's the worst way to break a person. So sometimes we may ghost a devotee. That okay, you did this, but now completely lost, completely rejected. Now, I'm not saying that there's other extremists, there's sometimes the devotee will do some terrible things and people keep covering that up and that can lead to abuse also. But in general, we all have some minor or sometimes somewhat, some more than minor problems. And the here is where when these non-standard emotions, desires come up, is there a place where I can talk with someone and I'll be understood, I'll be accepted, and then I'll be assisted. So that is the key thing. And this is something which is very much lacking in our movement right now. So how do we deal with it? Before I go there, any questions, comments about this? Yes,
So generally, when we see the devotees, as you have rightly said, like a wounded soldier, because of any reason or rhyme had happened with in a particular temple, but then we see that he moves to the other temple. There, the other person shelters him, okay, with compassion or whatever words which are. But your relationship with the two temples which you share the relationship with each other, the top people who are there, they start harboring issues with each other, or you start feeling that okay, it should be a very consistent policy, or philosophy policy should be there, that we have our relationship with each other, we are going up with each other, but rather now we are sheltering the other person, and somehow the other we are not in a good now relationship, and slowly the relationship deteriorates also.
Yeah.
So that is where the wounded soldier part, as you rightly said, which is the hospital and which is the battlefield. That's a problem.
Yeah. I was talking with Kiraj Maharaj, and he was telling me a very striking point. He said that I don't ever let my relationship with my disciples interfere with my relationship with my god brothers. What he meant by that is that I may have a particular god brother who is the GBC, Maharaj Giraj Maharaj is not a GBC, consciously chosen not to be GBC. So he said, I may have a disciple in a particular temple, who may be in a meeting position or whatever. And he said that disciple may have some difficulties with local GBC. That GBC may have one. So now I would very much want that disciple issue be resolved. And I will talk with, if required, I'll tell that you will talk with my god brother. I'll talk with my god brother also. But he said that, irrespective of how that disciple is dealt with, I see that as a manageable part. And my relationship with my god brother is personal. So it's not easy because we have bonds. We have bonds with each other. But and we are not just like completely rational creatures. But in some ways, we may have to recognize that it's like okay, we don't want to put a price on relationships, but in one sense, our relationship with our equals is more valuable for us than our relationship with our subordinates. We don't want to put a price on relationships like that. But yes, we'll have many subordinates. Some will, we don't want them. They will go in the sense that we don't value them. But rather, our relationship, the equals is more important. So yeah, I would have dealt with this subordinate in this particular way. But this devotee chose to deal with them in another way. Is that difference worth spoiling my relationship? My God. Not really. I'd say maybe that devotee will grow in that environment. Maybe that devotee will continue committing the mistake and there will be future problems because of that. Who knows? Time will tell us that. We can't really know what is going on in a person's heart. See, in the Mahabharata, there are not a Mahabharata, there are three examples of a person doing something wrong. There is Sugriva, sorry, Rama. There is Sugriva, there is Kaikai, and then there is Ravana. I'll explain what I mean. See, Sugriva, he had promised Lord Ram that as soon as the Chaturmasya is over, I will assist you in
Finding Sita.
finding Sita. But you know what happened? He went there and he got so, he had been living, he was a wanderer, he was living in austerity for so long, when he got all the pleasures of royalty, he completely forgot. And then Lakshman and Ram, Lakshman was initially very angry with him. But once he woke up, that's terrible. And then Sugriv never made that mistake again. Even when later Ravan tried to create a wedge,
Yeah.
Ravan said, sent some gifts and other things to Sugriv. He said that, no, I had a very good agreement with your brother, and now you are the king of the land, we'll have a good agreement. You don't mess with me, I won't mess with you. He says nothing will get lost. So Sugriv's mistake was entirely circumstantial. He was loyal, he was devoted, but the circumstances were such that he just was overwhelmed by those circumstances. When those circumstances didn't come back, he didn't go back to that. He remained true to his own. So sometimes a good person may also do bad things. Now, Kaikai, her wrongdoing was much more grievous in one sense. What did she do? She actually had Ram exiled, because of which there were consequences, and Dasharatha died. So in this case, it was not just circumstantial, it was circumstantial plus intentional. At least at that time.
Opportunist was.
Yeah, it was in the intention is, everybody begged to her, don't do this. Dasharatha said, if you want Bharat to become the king, let him become the king. But don't send Ram away.
Right.
Because the intention was there. But still, that intention was not very deep rooted. So because of that, what happened was, eventually when she thought actually I'm doing all this for Bharat. I'm protecting Bharat's interests. And when Bharat came and chastised her, damn, she came out of illusion. And the broader Ramayana literature, there are many songs of Kaikai's remorse of what she has done. And she went with Bharat to the forest to beg Ram to come back. And again, after that also, Ram doesn't hold it against Kaikai. Again, similarly, Ram doesn't hold it against Ram or Lakshmana don't hold it against Sugriva. So, now in the case of Ravana, however, it was totally intentional. It was not that he was in an unhappy marriage and that's why he was looking for some pleasure elsewhere. Mandodari was both beautiful and devoted. And he was just so lusty. And because of that, even when others deterred him, so in the case of Kaikai, somebody was inciting her. In the case of Ravan, so many people were deterring him. Maricha deterred him, Vibhishan deterred him, and so many other Malyavan, Mali, so many others told him, don't mess with her. And even if you have abducted Sita, now give back. Don't fight a war. But he didn't listen. So when somebody has committed a mistake, somebody has done something which is wrong, we can't presume that they are like Ravan. Maybe they just like Sugri. Or maybe, you see, in the case of Kaikeyi, when I say it's intentional, it was not that she intended any harm for Dashrath or Kaushalya or Ram. She just felt insecure. Intentionality was insecurity. She said that, I have this position now. I am the favorite queen of the king. And now, if my son doesn't become the king, if Kaushalya's son becomes the king, then she will becoming the royal mother. Her position will become elevated. My position will go down. And then what will happen to me at that time? So it was, even when it's intentional, see, the intention was more of insecurity, not ill will. It was not that she wanted to harm Ram, no, she just wanted to protect her interests. Sometimes in being protective, one can do wrong. So when somebody is doing something wrong, or when somebody has done something wrong, we immediately put a label on that person. And then that becomes a terrible thing. So Guhyam Akhyati Uchiti requires us the willingness to suspend putting labels, to suspend judgment, to avoid putting labels. Okay, this happened, you did this. Okay, what exactly happened? What made you do this? I want to understand this. So, and it is very difficult to find devotees with whom we can actually be vulnerable, so we can actually share our challenges. And if we can find someone, then we'll never be, the number of devotees who leave our movement will be far, far lesser. So we need to create a culture of this, that so we may share something small. I had this problem. And then we're sharing something small, we're watching. How is the other person react? I share some problem that I'm having, and the next day in the Bhagavatam class, that person mentioned that problem. And they mention it in such a way that in legal terms it's called plausible deniability. Plausible deniability means I say, I never mentioned your name. Yeah, but you mentioned so much that everybody knew who you're talking about. So sometimes people do like that.
I was quoted out of context.
It's quoted out of context, yeah. So it's like, but if we share something which we struggle we are going through, and then other people understand, okay, okay, yeah, and then they try to assist us, they support you. Then what will happen is we can share something more, something deeper, and then gradually this way we can have deeper relationships. See, deeper relationships, especially the Guhya part. Deep relationship can come from doing services together, from studying Shastra together, from just living together in the same ashram. We can have deep relationships. But the really deep relationships come when we are able to share what is deep in our hearts. What is deep and what we would normally not bring out. But what is deep inside sometimes may fester and become worse. So that is where the Guhya part is required. And so when we talk about deep relationships, what does it mean? Share what is deep in our heart. The things that we can't share with others very easily. Most ordinary people. But we share. For example, say book distribution is glorious. And the more books we distribute, the more Prabhupada wanted it, the more wonderful is the outreach we are doing. But suppose some devotee feels, say we are distributing books, but how many people are becoming devotees? What are we doing to help people become devotees? Without that, is this book distribution effective? How dare you question this? Do you think you are cleverer than Prabhupada? Prabhupada wanted books to be distributed. You are committing sacrilege against Prabhupada. You should be ashamed to speak words like this. Well, that person is never going to speak words like that again. Yeah, it's not wrong to want to say, okay, we're doing this service, you're pleasing Prabhupada. Prabhupada started not the International Society for Book Distribution, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So how is book distribution helping in fostering Krishna consciousness? Isn't that a valid question to ask? So yeah, it is a valid question. But are we allowed to ask that? Some places it's considered sacrilege. Other places no. We have a structure where I had Vaisheshika from one podcast. He's big into book distribution. But I've been to Silicon Valley. They've got a beautiful community built, and they have Shastri courses. They have programs for kids. They have corporate outreach. They have a whole community built around book distribution. So where is like that one definition of success is prominent, but other definitions of success are also given importance. Not as much importance, but equal importance. So that's I would say balanced. So sometimes we may be doing some service and we may be doing it because we're told to do, but we are not finding it's effective. So Can we talk about it? So for this, I'll conclude the last point, and if you have another question, take it. And then we often talk about devotee association. It's so important. But Rupa Goswami says we need like-minded association. So Jatiya Asha. Now, what does like-minded association mean? In my understanding is it has three aspects to it. The first is we understand their mind. That means what? Let's see, different devotees have different ways of thinking. They explain things. Like sometimes we ask a question and a devotee gives an answer, and the answer leaves us more confused than before we had asked the question. So it's better. So that now the devotee may feel, I answered your question. Yeah, but I didn't get an answer. But some devotees, when they give an answer, yeah, things make sense. Yeah, this makes sense. So, for like-minded association, one part is we understand their mind. That is important. Hmm. That when they speak, what they speak all makes sense to us. Otherwise, it's not like-minded association. But the second important part is, now we may find many devotees, we understand the way they speak. But then the second is, they understand our mind. That means when we are raising a question, we are voicing a concern, we are sharing a struggle. Now they don't demonize us immediately. They understand our mind. So at one time in my about 10 years into my Krishna consciousness, I started having a lot of intellectual challenges. I asked in the Lilamrit, there's one place where Prabhupada says that by 2000, nobody will be able to live on the surface of the earth because there is so much pollution that everybody to save themselves from pollution will have to live underground like rats. So I asked a senior devotee who was one of my Shiksha, how do I understand this? And this sentence doesn't make any sense. And that devotee wrote back to me, I've been observing you. You are going on a dangerous path of challenging Srila Prabhupada. Yasya prasada prasado, yasya prasada nagati kutopi. He says, if you continue on this path, you will be destroyed in your spiritual life. That. And then that devotee gave an answer saying that I was in America and there's one city which is completely covered, where the whole city is like a greenhouse. See, Prabhupada's prophecy is coming true. Now, I don't know, that answer destroyed my faith in that devotee. So basically, I was not coming from platform talk. Maybe I was. But in Sanskrit, there's a big difference between samshaya and prashna. Sometimes in Indians we interchange it. We say, I have a doubt. You don't have a doubt. You have a question. And questions are encouraged. Gunaya sadhu prishtoham. Or that, is appreciating questions. Samshaya is considered demonic. So the two are very different. So anyway, so after I stopped asking the devotee questions, so then I asked the senior devotee, and that devotee gave a reasonable answer. He says, he did some research. Prabhupada had made the statement in 1976. He did a morning walk. And the devotee did some research. And just 2 days before that, some devotee had read to Prabhupada the prophecy, or not the forecast by some environmental organization, which had said that the way pollution is growing in the world, by 2000 nobody will be able to live on the surface of the earth. So when Prabhupada was saying that, Prabhupada was not quoting Shastra, Prabhupada was not making Shastra statement. He is quoting a source that he had heard. Now, when I am questioning that, I am not questioning Prabhupada and his scriptural authority. So it is a very simple explanation. But why make it into a faith issue? So we understand, they understand our mind. Yeah, I am coming from a rational perspective. I am not coming from a skeptical perspective. I am not coming from a samshaya atma vinishati perspective. So they understand our mind. And the third part is, so this can apply in various ways. You see, if we are good at management, and then we may have some senior devotees who may not be that good at management. And sometimes their managerial practices, we may question them. Now, that does not mean that we doubt that person as a devotee. That does not mean that we are being offensive. Yes, managerially, I have some questions. So they understand our mind. And the third is, they help us understand our mind. That means when our mind is thinking a particular way, some aspect of it is right, some aspect of it is wrong. So in this case, when this devotee gave that answer, I was thinking that, oh, if Prabhupada made a wrong statement, then is Prabhupada wrong? Then how can we accept Prabhupada's authority? See, your mind is presuming that everything that Prabhupada spoke is necessarily from Shastra. But Prabhupada was a human being. Are we going to say that Prabhupada did not learn English or any other language? Did Prabhupada read Shastra only and all other times his eyes and ears were closed? No, Prabhupada didn't operate like that. Prabhupada learned other things, and other things which he learned, he used whenever appropriate for Krishna's service. There was one time when Prabhupada quoted from the Aquarian Gospel. And he said, Prabhupada in lectures, in the Aquarian Gospel, it is said that Jesus Christ, he went to India. He went to Jagannath Puri and he learned from the Pujaris over there. And then Ravindra Swarupa asked Prabhupada, is that Aquarian Gospel authorized book? Prabhupada said, isn't that the Gospel? Prabhupada, the name is a Gospel, but it's a recent book. It's a few hundred years old book. And he said, that is not accepted even by Christians in the Gospel. Oh. So is that right? Is that an authorized book? Prabhupada says, that part of Jesus going to Puri is nice. But Prabhupada didn't go to Aquarian Gospel after that. So the point is that like-minded basically means, see, the way their mind functions, we understand that. The way our mind functions, they understand that. But because they have also gone on a journey, they understand how our minds function is sometimes right and sometimes wrong. And where it is wrong, they explain it in a way that is understandable for us. Otherwise, somebody says, you're just on the mental path. Okay, but what does that mean? And how do I get out of it? Why did I get into it? You need to explain some things to me. So if you can find even one devotee like this, then we are extremely blessed. Because we will have a safe space within our movement. And of course, we can look for a devotee like that, but you can also try to become a devotee like that. That means if somebody has some problems, if they try to share with us, we don't immediately condemn, we don't immediately label, but we try to understand, we try to help motivate. So this is often this Guriyam Akhyati Uchati. This is often an extremely downplayed aspect because especially as we become senior, we could be giving in 1 hour we could be giving a class which attending 500 people. And instead of that, we spend that 1 hour with another devotee who's are equal. From a material perspective, from external perspective, it's just a wasted time. I could be doing so much service. No, this is also a service, and it's an important service. And we could say every service benefits us as well as others, but maybe a service to equal god brother, or somebody who's in our family, god family, maybe at our level, more or less. That may be a more valuable service. And not only a valuable service, you can say it may be a more non-substitutable service. If I don't go for a program, well, some other teacher will go. But if my god brother is in trouble, is there anyone else who can help? Maybe to find a replacement over there is much more difficult. So we also need to see from not just the perspective of immediate recognition and appreciation in this ISKCON world. We need to see from the perspective of Krishna. Would Krishna want that this devotee was given 20 years of their life to him and the devotee is in trouble? Would Krishna want me to spend time with this devotee, or would Krishna want me to spend time with somebody who is, some people are new? Krishna would want both, but both are not possible. But this is to be given due priority. And once we give due priority, it's not just that we can help each other when we're in difficulties, but we can actually get a sense of solidarity and strength. That actually, I'm not alone in this battle. There are others are fighting also, somebody getting wounded, but they are also rising and fighting. I can also rise and fight. So that sense of camaraderie, that sense of comradeship that can come by this intimate reciprocation, few things can empower us as much as that. Giving a wonderful class to 1,000 people can inspire us, but actually spending 1 hour of deep association can actually empower us much, much more, can strengthen us, can inspire us at a much deeper level. So this we also need to see as a definition of success. Right? How much time am I there with my equals? How much depth are we sharing with our equals? Like somebody shares their problem. You could see it that way. No, just all negativity problems we share. Say that okay, this devotee has sufficient trust in me that they're sharing the problem, and that is a success. So we can see that way, and then that can help us bond with each other much, much better. And thus, what Prabhupada says, the sixfold exchanges nourish the Krishna consciousness. That we can be a part in manifesting that in our service to Srila Prabhupada and to his movement. So I'll summarize. Before I summarize, any questions, comments? Yes, Prabhu.
With regard to this like-minded association, the first part of we understanding their mind is okay, and suppose they're not comfortable with the levels of our understanding, with a little bit of humility from our end, a little bit more of empathy, and a little bit of their own cooperation, we may be able to understand their mind. Now, what happens if, like you give this example of the greenhouse being given? So, what happens if somebody, an equal or a friend, or even a superior for that matter, spiritually, they don't understand our mind, and there is sometimes a natural. You talk about that hierarchical model that is set in through many years of upbringing. So, what's the right way to put it across, and at the same time, how do I derive benefit from that association without irritating the other person?
Yeah, I think that over a period of time we understand which questions to ask whom, which issues to bring to whom. So with some devotees who just said this kind of issue I cannot bring up with them. So we will have to find somebody else with whom we can bring up some kind of issues. So that's an advantage of having a broad movement where there are so many devotees. When I do this monks podcast, I have developed a term. In romance, they call people to have chemistry. Like a hero and heroine have chemistry. So like that, I use the word intellectual chemistry or spiritual chemistry. Like two people just understand each other. Like some devotees, they may be in a different project, maybe in a different country, but when we meet them, we feel as if we're the best of friends. So if we have time, if we have devotees like that, even one devotee, we need to invest time in developing that relationship. So we may have working relationship with the people around us. We can't expect the same level of intimacy in all our relationships. Just because there is proximity does not necessarily mean there will be intimacy. We can try for that, but if it's not working, then wherever it works, that's fine. As long as it's within Prabhupada's family. Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. This Guhyam is only challenges part, or we can have some
Realizations also.
realizations.
That's why I said sometimes if a devotee says, I had a dream of Krishna. Now somebody may say, I think you are being a surgeon. The two extremes. And oh, you're just a pure devotee, Krishna is coming in your dream. Some people may glorify. Others say you are being a surgeon. So we don't want either. But some devotee can share. Suppose we were doing meditative worship and suddenly we felt some ecstasy or something, some experience we have. Now that may not be appropriate to speak in the Bhagavatam class about it. So, but there will be some people with whom we can share that. So yes, it's not just challenges. It can be also some of our realizations and experiences that may not be appropriate to share in public, into the public. Some people will share.
Secondly, like you said, we have to share with the equals. And
Well, my understanding is after 10, 15 years, maybe 10 or 15 years, now it's like
seniors left.
no, I mean, say equal becomes a very, very broad definition. See, when I'm new, somebody 5 years older than me is like almost a pure devotee for me. But if after 20 years in practice of bhakti, whether somebody came 25 years ago or 15 years ago, sorry, Yeah. Or maybe 30 years old, and it may not make that much difference. In other etiquette, I mean, offer respect because they're senior, but then in functionality, they may be like equals. So now, can this be with seniors also? If seniors are available and seniors are there to give us guidance, that's great. But sometimes they may not be available all the time. So yeah, it's not necessary. So it's what I was using the word equal in a very broad sense. I would say that, I mean, almost you could say equal in the same generation. Like we have Prabhupada disciples, we have devotees who have come more or less with us, and then devotees whom we have preached to. They're not their disciples, but they're devotees whom we have preached to. So they're like our students. So if you put them in another generation, so broadly equal means in our broad generation.
Said Sujatya Snik Swotar. Swotar means he should be more realized than me.
Yeah, so I would say at least in that area, it's like that's where I talk about the problem. If I have complaints about management, and I know you have complaints about management also, and I come to you, then our Bohya Makhya Pushati will simply both of us together bashing the management. That will not lead to any solution. If I have a problem, then I need to go to someone who is not entirely similar. Maybe that person is at least more favorable and healthier in that particular situation. Maybe they'll not be entirely more advanced than me. There are other areas where I may better than me. But in general, if I have a problem, I cannot go to a person who had that same problem like me or bigger than me. Maybe they had that problem in the past, but now they have dealt with it, they have overcome it. Then it's helpful.
So just remaining on his point, a very important point, but somehow if a person wants to reveal his heart, mind, and he knows that yes, I am, he has similar, whatever seniority, as you have rightly said, after a few years or so, at the threshold also, more or less, you all are same or in your depth of Krishna consciousness. But the other person is still feeling that, okay, I am not qualified to understand, as you were saying, this somehow some devotional ecstasies or something is there, but he says, I'm not still qualified, I'm still learning. So, one thing is that giving a lending an ear is one part, but the other thing which you say that if it is not in his area of expertise or if he's not ready, so he can politely excuse himself or something like that, or one should definitely still harbor that Guhyam, I must still have that patient hearing also.
Right. See, for Bohya, it has to be natural.
It has to match.
It is natural, at least to some extent natural. So if it is forced, then it will not be very, it won't be very natural. Sometimes the discipline we may do it, but yeah, if I'm talking with somebody about their challenges in a particular service which I have never done that service, and I may give them, as you said, I may give them a ear, but I may not be able to help them much because I don't know that service, I don't know that situation at all. So it's best that it's like when we go for food distribution, we go on the street to street, door to door distribution. We knock on a door. And some people just look to the people and I don't know. Some people open the door slightly and they say I don't know. Some people open the door and talk a little bit more. And they open the door and then they pick up a book. Some people open the door, pick up a book and they open the pages. Others they buy a book. So it's like if somebody is through the people who are saying, I check it. So you don't want to spend time over there. Don't keep banging on the door again. So like that, we share a little with somebody, and the person doesn't show any reciprocation, show any interest, show any what we would find an appropriate response. Then we understand, this is not a person with whom I can have this reciprocation. So we move on to find somebody else.
Thank you.
Sure. Prajit, one of your slides earlier on, you mentioned or you indicated about a wall being created between. Prabhupada also, we read in Prabhupada purpose about transparency between the spiritual master and the disciple. So, does that also hold good, or how valid is it at the leadership level?
Yeah, now I would say transparency is similar to vulnerability. Now, like transparency means if I have some problems, I'm able to share with others. So the way our movement is increasingly becoming structured is that few of us will have abundant access to our spiritual master. We'll have some access, but how much access we will have is future most forward, it's difficult. So we need somewhere so transparency. Um, how do we bring it about? In one sense, it will have to be among equals. So among equals, by equals I mean equal generation, same generation. Because in one sense, after Srila Prabhupada departed, as I said, 90% of devotees left. So now, after Prabhupada's disciples, what is going to happen? We don't want to think about that. We hope and pray that they stay with us for a long, long time to come. But sooner or later, the nature of material reality is going to manifest. So we will need to be able to find strength and shelter among each other. And how much can, obviously we can't expect the same level of subordination or submission with an equal as we would have with the spiritual master. But some level of intimacy, some level, like Prabhupada, even yesterday I quoted Prabhupada saying that now that you're a senior man, I can't instruct you. I can only give you suggestions.
I can only use.
Give you suggestions. Now that you're a senior man, I can only give you suggestions. Sometimes that's what we may get from others. And we need to also take the suggestions seriously. That, okay, not necessarily as instruction, mandated, binding, but still something which is not just your opinion. They have thought about it, they have heard us out, and they're recommending something. We need to take it really seriously. Am I addressing your question or is it something else? Yes.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. You emphasized on most important points. Okay, I think I'm on. Hare Krishna. One of the important aspects, as you said, that devotees we are not able to retain. They come here, they practice for many, many years. I've been in ashram for now almost 12 years. But I see the retainership rate is less. They keep moving. But what I also feel, I'm sorry about it, we don't have the will to retain them. We are lacking the will to retain them. And we do not make much effort. We are more interested to make new ones rather than to retain them or to speak to them or to come to know. As you said, that intermediate higher taste, if that is not achieved, they will definitely leave. So how to be able to do that? Because for that, the leadership has to address each and every individual.
Yeah, it's difficult. No, one way that the leadership addresses each individual and takes care of them. The other is that the leadership right from the beginning also trains devotees to be independently thoughtful. That means that yes, we're giving you the service and you need to do the service. But while you're doing the service, we have your eyes and ears open. Observe and find out for yourself which service you feel inspired to do, which service you have the ability to do. So when I say guna karma vibhagasha, Krishna says, one fact, sometimes Sanskrit terms, if we try to get some English equivalent, they're not exact, but they can be something helpful in understanding. So what the way I understand guna and karma is that if somebody has the guna for doing something, the quality for doing something, then they are comfortable doing it. They feel good doing that service. Yeah, when somebody is doing, I'm doing kirtan, I just feel at home. They're comfortable, and karma is competent. They're actually good at doing it. So if somebody can find a service which falls in the intersection between these two, then this is extremely sustainable. So in general, we can right from the beginning itself encourage devotees, not be whimsical, not to be independent, but be observing. That you want to keep serving Krishna lifelong, and find out what you will feel inspired to do for Krishna life. So maybe you will not be able to do it immediately. Don't expect that this is I want to be a Shastra teacher. And I joined 1 year ago, can I teach Bhakti Shastra? That's not expected. We have been 5-10 years of studies in it. But yeah, this is what I wanted to do. That's fine. Keep observing. So if we train devotees also to take responsibility for their spiritual life. We train devotees in conformity more than responsibility. Conformity means what time you're waking up, are you completing around by this time, how much we have sadhana cards. The sadhana card is important, But sadhana card, their responsibility is not limited to just filling the sadhana card. They're taking responsibility for understanding themselves, responsibility for understanding the gifts that Krishna has given them. And earlier you mentioned this point that we are told that whatever service you're doing. When we talk about our nature, at one level, seeking service according to our nature is not being independent of whimsical. It is actually using the gift that Krishna has given us. Our nature, you may say it's come by our karma, but our karma has been arranged under Krishna's nature. Karmana daivanitreya. So it is whatever our nature's good points are, especially that means they are the gifts given by Krishna to us. So understanding the gifts that we have, so that we can serve better. That is our service to Krishna. It's like somebody gets a farmland in inheritance from their parents. Now you could say they got a farmland, they should do farming. But suppose their father, and in the deep below the farmland, they have put a hidden treasure over there. Now, wouldn't the father want them to dig that treasure and take that treasure? So similarly, we could say that we come to Krishna in a particular environment, where there's a particular farmland, particular kind of services are being done. And we do those services, we learn those services, we develop those skills as much as we can. But Krishna has given something to us to do it below the surface also. So if we train devotees to take responsibility, then they won't they won't blame us so much. So both ways, yes, authorities have to take more responsibility, more interest in devotees, but we also need to train devotees to take more responsibility. Does that address your question?
But my point is because they are not engaged in their, because they are not at the level that they have been given up with the conditioning. Everybody is there with the baggage of conditioning.
Of course.
So if the engagement is not proper, then the drain is much more.
I agree fully. No, my point was only this, that to find proper engagement should not be the sole responsibility of the authority.
True.
So the individual should also be encouraged to try to find that out. Yes. But yes, engaging is not easy. It is in the world also now, many companies, retaining people is very difficult. It is, especially talented people, creative people, retaining them is not easy. And many companies, at one level, they can always employ someone else. But the problem is, you have to train that person, you have to spend money, time, energy on training that person. So even in corporate circles, one characteristic of success, one development parameters for evaluating their vibrancy is how much is their retention rate. So, and that is also a parameter we need to consider. So, I'll quickly summarize, then we conclude. So, I discussed right now, today in the second session, we discussed primarily about, the first session was about acceptance, where we talked elaborately about how we can engage people in practicing bhakti to know. And based on the acceptance, we talk about facilitation. For the second session, right from your place, at your place, access Krishna's grace. Facilitate people to grow at their different levels. But for facilitation, the third part was, which is more like appreciation of different definitions of success. So facilitation of service, appreciation of different definitions of success. This was the key theme of this last session. And in that, I started by talking about conventional definitions of success. What were the three conventional definitions?
Devotees
Books, temples, devotees. And then I discussed three neglected definitions. We focused on one of them, but what else? Anyone remembers? Yeah, maintenance of devotees. Not maintenance in the financial money, but that's sustenance of that. Then
Children.
devotee children and philosophical growth. Philosophical understanding. So in that, I focused primarily on maintaining devotees, and then I discussed various historical reasons why about 90% of Srila Prabhupada's disciples left. Any of them came back, but still not all, not a significant percentage. So because of the shock of Prabhupada's departure, because of the difficulty in their dealing with their equals who suddenly become gurus, and especially because of the book distribution suddenly going down, the temple letting people off. A lot of people left. And it's not that the leadership were bad, but it's that they didn't they were not taught. So our definition of success, it shapes our actions both consciously and unconsciously. So I know the definition of success was okay, how many books are distributed? Well, if people are going, what can we do about it? Let them know. So we have changed substantially. And this definition says that devotee care means we want to care for devotees. That means that we try to understand and engage them appropriately according to their nature, their swabha. In that connection, the second half of the afternoon session we discussed about this whole principle of equal association, or rather, good relationship among devotees. One of the key things that will keep devotees in the moment is that if they have relationships, it's that not just we have bond with Krishna, but we have a bonds with others who are connected with Krishna. That will also keep us in the movement. So if you consider this to be ISKCON, Krishna consciousness movement, then here there is Krishna. And I stay in the moment because I am connected with Krishna. This is the bond that keeps me here. But apart from that, I have bonds with others also. That also keep me connected with Krishna. So we want these bonds also to be there. So how do we, if we have these, then we talk about for this, the especially among for this ultimate guhya makya, the guhya comes because it is there are many things within us which we can't share with others, with everyone else. So the internal and external difference that could be because of hypocrisy, and often we assume it is because of hypocrisy if we see it, but no, it could be because of ritual, it could be because of culture, it could be because of discipline. And in hypocrisy, one wants to maintain the negative internal so that one can opportunistically strike. Whereas in discipline, one wants to develop the positive internal, although it is not there right now. So in that case, when the tension between the internal and external is there, some lapses occur. How do we help each other? So do we treat a devotee like a wounded soldier or a criminal or a hidden criminal whose crime has come out? And then we discuss that. The three examples of wrongdoing, the Mahabharata, Sugriv, Kaikai, and Ram. So we can't assume that a devotee who has done something wrong is like Ram. And for being able to, for devotees to be able to share their struggles, we are confidential. We need to be not jumping to big judgment, and that will not that big judgment will not happen. It's important to have like-minded association. Like-minded means that we understand their mind, they understand our mind, and they help us understand where our mind is not functioning rightly, where it's going wrong. And even if we get one devotee association like that, that is very helpful. We cherish that wherever it works out. And that way we can help each other sustain ourselves. We also discussed about the brahmacharya ashram to some extent. We don't want to make it too easy for people to live, but we don't want to keep people just because they don't have any alternative. We want them to be there because this is attractive. And for that purpose, while the higher taste is important, but that may take time. So the intermediate higher taste that comes by contacting one another, we try to help each other find that. And then the longevity and the joyfulness and bhakti will become more accessible. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Krishna Prabhupada ki. Gaur Bhaktavinda ki. Gaur
चरण चरण की
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare.
I would like to before you thank all of you for your patience in hearing whatever I was speaking. It is I presume all of you have far more, I would say, ground level experience than what I have. To say that if you're talking about depth and breadth, I have more. Because breadth I have traveled a lot, but all of you have probably more depth than me. But if I can give some service to you, that is my fortune. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity to give some service.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. And it was really a treat for all of us. And the way you explained everything, such wonderful concepts. Guhya mein Kyati Pichari. First time I clear what is meant by Swajatiya. Often people used to ask what is meant by Swajatiya. We used to give any explanation. And many other things, many confidential things to reveal. And it was very nice. And we request you probably to please give your suggestion again and again, because this is a leaders forum and we are trying to have this. Normally we used to have monthly gathering. Now, for the last 2 3 years we couldn't have that. So if you keep on coming and addressing us like this, it will help us to bind together more deep relationships and be able to serve better in our communities.
Thank you. I'm honored for your service. Thank you.
Thank you so
Hare
much.
Krishna.
Chaitanya Prabhu ki jai.
If anything that I spoke is objectionable or offensive, please forgive me and please feel free to tell me privately also. Because these are all, I don't say these are like conclusive understandings. We're all on the spiritual journey, evolving. So many of my understandings also in the formative stage. So please feel free after this talk. I'll be there in prompting and Sant Nagar. Any of you want to give any thoughts or some reservations about what I spoke, feel free to share that also.
More inclusive also and conclusive also.
We would like your presence exclusively also. Okay, 7 hours.